Captain Deho stood in the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel Harmony, watching the massive space station Viridian Prime grow larger in the viewport. He had made this journey 43 times in the past 8 years. Each time he hoped things would be different. Each time he returned home with nothing but empty promises. Behind him, Ambassador Hana reviewed her notes one final time. Her hands moved across the data pad with practiced efficiency, but Deho could see the tension in her shoulders. They both knew what today's council meeting would bring. They had known for weeks. 7 times, Hana said quietly. We've asked 7 times for equal representation. Deho turned to face her. Maybe the 8th time will be different? Hana smiled, but there was no humor in it. You don't believe that any more than I do. She was right. The Galactic Council had made its position clear from the beginning. Humans were useful. Humans were strong. Humans could survive in places where other species would die within minutes, but humans were also too aggressive, too emotional, too unpredictable. They could participate in council discussions. They could offer suggestions, but they could not vote on matters that affected the entire galaxy. It was a polite way of calling them second-class citizens. The docking procedures took 20 minutes. Deho and Hana walked through the pristine corridors of Viridian Prime in silence. Around them, dozens of species went about their business. Some nodded in greeting. Others avoided eye contact. Everyone knew the humans were here for another failed vote. The council chamber was already full when they arrived. 200 species had representatives present, their forms ranging from the aquatic pelions in their water-filled spheres to the massive rock-like grenders who barely fit through the chamber doors. At the center of the room, on the highest platform, sat the Council of 12, the founding species who held veto power over any decision. Hana took her place at the human podium. Deho stood beside her, hands clasped behind his back in a military rest position. He had learned years ago that the council preferred humans to look as non-threatening as possible. The session began with standard reports. Trade agreements, border disputes, resource allocation. Deho listened with half his attention while monitoring his communication device with the other half. His crew on the Harmony was tracking something unusual, increased military activity near the Vrelian border. Then Hana's name was called. She stepped forward and delivered her speech. It was the same speech she had given 6 times before with minor variations. She spoke of humanity's contributions to galactic society. She detailed the rescue operations, the infrastructure projects, the dangerous missions that only human ships would accept. She reminded the council that human crews had saved over 4 million lives in the past decade alone. She asked one more time for equal voting rights. The silence that followed was familiar. Deho had heard it before. It was the silence of people who had already made up their minds and were simply waiting for the appropriate moment to say no. Councillor Thren, a tall insectoid creature with 4 arms and compound eyes, spoke first. Ambassador Hana, we appreciate humanity's service to the galactic community. However, the Council must consider the psychological profiles of all species before granting full membership rights. Humans remain classified as a high-aggression species from a Class 12 death world. This classification requires additional observation time before voting privileges can be extended. How much more time? Hana asked. The edge in her voice was subtle, but Deho heard it. The Council will review humanity's status again in 15 standard years. 15 years. The same answer they had given last year, and the year before that. Hana opened her mouth to respond, but Deho's communication device vibrated urgently against his wrist. He glanced down and felt his blood turn cold. Emergency transmission. Colony ship Bright Future. Under attack. He touched Hana's shoulder and showed her the screen. Her face went pale. The Bright Future was a civilian vessel carrying 50,000 people to a new colony in the Kepler sector. Among those people were Hana's sister and her 3 children. Among them were Deho's former crew members. Among them were families, teachers, engineers, artists, children too young to understand what space travel meant. Hana's voice cut through the council chamber like a knife. We need immediate military assistance. One of our colony ships is under attack in the Kepler sector. The council members looked at each other. Councillor Thren's mandibles clicked together in thought. What is the nature of the attack? Vrelian warships, Deho said, reading the data as it came through. 3 heavy cruisers. The colony ship has minimal defensive capabilities. The Kepler sector is outside Council protection zones, another counselor said. This one was Mendra, a floating jellyfish-like being that spoke through a translation device. The attack is unfortunate, but not within our jurisdiction. Hana's hands gripped the podium. 50,000 civilians are going to die. We need help now. The Council must vote on whether to intervene in non-protected space, Thren said. This will require time to— We don't have time. Deho stepped forward, abandoning protocol. The ship's shields are failing. They have maybe 2 hours before hull breach. The Council went into discussion. Deho watched the chronometer on his device and felt each second like a physical weight. The bright future was 3 days from the nearest human military vessel. But a Council fleet was only 6 hours away, conducting exercises in a nearby system. 6 hours. They could make it. They could save everyone. The discussion dragged on. Procedures were cited. Protocols were referenced. One counselor suggested that this was an internal matter between humans and Vrelians. Another pointed out that intervening might escalate tensions. A third worried about the cost of diverting the fleet from its scheduled exercises. 45 minutes passed. Deho's device updated. The bright future's shields had collapsed. Hull breaches on 3 decks. Casualty reports coming in. He showed the data to the Council. Please, send the fleet. Counselor Thren looked at the numbers. This is indeed tragic. The Council extends its sympathies to— Sympathies? Hana's voice was barely above a whisper. You're offering sympathies? The Council has voted, Thren continued. Intervention in the Kepler sector is not approved at this time. However, we have an urgent matter that requires Earth's immediate attention. A mining facility in the Terrius system is experiencing equipment failures. We need human engineers and rescue ships to— No. Hana said it so quietly that Deho almost missed it. Thren's compound eyes fixed on her. Excuse me? No. This time her voice carried across the entire chamber. You want us to send our ships to fix your mining equipment while our people are dying? No. Ambassador, you are out of order. Another update came through. Deho didn't want to look, but he had to. His hands shook as he read the message. The bright future had stopped transmitting. All life signs had gone. Dark 50,000 people gone. He looked up at Hana. She was reading the same message on her own device. For a moment, her face showed everything: grief, rage, despair, disbelief. Then something changed. Her expression went smooth, empty, cold. She looked at the Council of 12. She looked at the 200 species representatives. She looked at the chamber that had become so familiar over 8 years of begging for scraps of recognition. We are done, she said. Counselor Thren tilted his head. Ambassador, if you could please calm down and— We are done, Hana repeated. She turned to Deho. Captain, send a message to Earth. Recall every human ship, every engineer, every doctor, every rescue team, every diplomat, every single human in Council space. Bring them all home. Ambassador, you cannot— We are done negotiating. We are done asking. We are done saving you. Hana's voice echoed through the chamber. You let our children die while you debated jurisdiction. You want our help? You want our ships? You want our people to risk their lives for yours? Then you should have saved them when it mattered. She walked toward the exit. Deho followed her, his military training the only thing keeping his legs steady. Behind them, the Council chamber erupted into noise. Voices called for order. Some demanded that Hana return to apologize. Others asked what would happen to the ongoing rescue operations in 6 different systems. Deho didn't look back. He sent the recall message as they walked. Every human vessel, every human station, every human outpost, come home. In 72 hours, the galaxy would understand what they had lost. In 72 hours, they would learn what happens when Deathworlders stop being nice. Bora had been drinking coffee in the break room when the recall order came through. She had read it 3 times, certain she was misunderstanding something. Total recall. Immediate return to human space. No exceptions. She was the chief of Earth's Deep Space Rescue Corps. Her teams were currently managing 7 active operations across 4 sectors. 3 of those operations involved species that would die without human assistance. One was a medical emergency on a station with 15,000 inhabitants. Another was a structural collapse in an underwater city where only humans had the equipment to survive the pressure. The coffee went cold in her hands as she stared at the message. Her second in command, Yuna, appeared in the doorway. The young woman's face was pale. You saw it too? I saw it. Bora set down the coffee cup. Call everyone in. Emergency meeting. 10 minutes? The rescue corps gathered in the main briefing room. 32 teams. 418 people. They had joined the corps because they wanted to help. Most of them had saved more lives than they could count. Bora stood at the front of the room and told them about the bright future. She told them about the council vote. She told them about Ambassador Hana's final words. The silence that followed was heavy. What about the Pelion station? Someone asked. They need the new oxygen recyclers by tomorrow or the whole station dies. What about the Grendra mining accident? Another voice called out. We're the only ones small enough to reach the trapped workers. Bora had asked herself the same questions for the past 3 hours. She had run through every scenario, every option, every possible solution. In the end, it came down to one simple truth. The council let our people die, she said. 50,000 of them. While we were out here saving everyone else's families, ours were screaming for help, and the council debated jurisdiction. She looked at her teams. Good people. Brave people. People who had spent years risking their lives for strangers. I'm calling a vote, Bora said. Do we follow the recall order or do we stay and finish our operations? She expected debate. She expected arguments. She expected at least some people to insist they had to help. Instead, every hand went up. Every single one, the vote was unanimous. They were going home. Within 6 hours, every human rescue ship had begun breaking off from their operations. They sent final status reports. They provided what data they could. Then they turned their ships toward human space and left. The galaxy noticed immediately. On the Pelion station, the oxygen recyclers failed right on schedule. Within 12 hours, the station's atmosphere became toxic. 70,000 Pelions had to be evacuated to emergency ships. 300 died before the evacuation was complete. In the Grendra mines, the trapped workers ran out of air. The Grendra military tried to mount a rescue, but their equipment couldn't handle the pressure at that depth. 47 workers died waiting for help that never came. A medical transport carrying plague victims lost containment. Human doctors had been managing the quarantine protocols. Without them, the disease spread to 2 nearby stations. The death toll reached 8,000 before other species figured out the containment procedures that humans had been handling for years. Sang-Ho watched the news feeds. From his office on mining colony Perseus 7, he was the colony administrator, responsible for 3,000 human miners and their families. The colony was deep in human-controlled space, far from the chaos spreading through council territories, but he had friends out there, colleagues, people he had trained with years ago who had chosen to work in council space instead of human colonies. Now they were all coming home. It's getting bad, his assistant said, pointing to the latest reports. 17 major infrastructure failures in the past 48 hours. Trade routes are collapsing because nobody else wants to fly through the radiation zones. Sang-Ho nodded slowly. Humans had always taken the dangerous routes. Radiation didn't bother them as much as it bothered other species. They could handle exposure that would kill a Pelion in minutes or drive a Grendra insane with pain. Other species had called humans crazy for flying those routes. Humans had just called it efficient. Now those routes were closed. Ships were being forced to take longer, safer paths. Journey times were doubling, tripling. Some goods wouldn't make it to their destinations before spoiling. How many stations are in critical condition? Sang-Ho asked. His assistant checked the data. Last count was 47. But that was 2 hours ago. It's probably more now. 47 stations, hundreds of thousands of lives, all depending on human engineers who had maintained the critical systems that other species didn't want to touch. The dangerous reactors, the unstable gravity generators, the life support systems that required constant adjustment in ways that most species found too risky. Humans had said yes to all of it. They had fixed the problems, managed the risks, kept everything running, and they had done it for 50 years without asking for anything more than fair treatment. Now they were gone. On the 4th day of the recall, a delegation arrived at Earth. 47 species sent representatives. They came in ships displaying peaceful intentions. They came with messages of reconciliation and requests for negotiation. They were met in orbit by Admiral Jawan and a fleet of 30 human warships. The delegation was not permitted to land. Yuna, who had left the rescue corps to become a journalist, recorded the entire conversation. Her camera drone captured Admiral Jae-won's face on the main view screen as he addressed the delegation. "State your purpose," he said simply. The delegation's spokesperson was a Pelion named Tresh. His water sphere made his voice sound distorted through the translation system. "We come seeking dialogue. The Council wishes to discuss the current situation and find a path forward." "The situation is simple," J1 replied. "For 50 years, humans did the jobs you were too afraid to do. We flew the routes you called suicide runs. We fixed the equipment you labeled too dangerous. We rescued your people from disasters you caused through negligence and carelessness. We asked for one thing in return, to be treated as equals. You refused. Then you let our people die. The Council deeply regrets. Your regrets are noted." J1's voice was cold. "What do you want?" Tresh seemed to gather himself. "The galaxy is in crisis. Stations are failing. Trade has collapsed. People are dying. We need human assistance to—" "No." The single word hung in the space between the fleets. "Admiral, please understand." "I understand perfectly. You need us. You've always needed us. You just never respected us." Jae-won leaned forward slightly. "The Council is prepared to offer new terms for human participation. Yes, we have prepared a proposal that includes improved trade agreements and increased resource allocation for human colonies." "Stop." Jae-won held up one hand. "Are you prepared to offer full Council voting rights? Equal representation? Protection for all human colonies? Military support when we call for it?" Tresh hesitated. "The Council would need to discuss, then we're done here. Earth's terms are simple. Full equality or nothing at all. Come back when you're ready to say yes. Admiral, species are dying while we debate. 50,000 of our people died while you debated." Jae-won's voice could have frozen stars. "You didn't care then." "We don't care now. This conversation is over." The communication cut off. Yuna's recording spread across the galaxy within hours. She had added her own commentary, providing context that most species didn't know. She explained how human rescue teams had saved the Pelion homeworld from an asteroid collision. How human engineers had rebuilt the Grendra orbital platforms after a solar flare wiped out their technology. How human doctors had cured the Mendra plague that nearly wiped out their species. She listed every major crisis of the past 50 years and highlighted humanity's role in solving them. Then she showed the Council vote on the bright future. The debate over jurisdiction, the casual dismissal of 50,000 lives. The recording ended with a simple question: who are the real monsters? The species that asks for help, or the species that refuses to give it? By the end of the first week, galactic civilization was in genuine crisis. Space stations continued failing. Ships were stranded on closed routes. Medical emergencies went unanswered. The Vrelian Dominion, emboldened by Council weakness, attacked 2 more colony worlds. One of those worlds sent a desperate plea to Bora's rescue corps. The message was simple: 20,000 civilians trapped by orbital bombardment. Rescue ships needed immediately. The rescue corps was the only organization with the equipment and expertise to evacuate people under active fire. Bora watched the message in her quarters. She listened to the voices of children crying in the background. She saw the thermal readings showing cities burning. Her hand moved toward the communication panel. 1 word, 1 order. That's all it would take. Her teams would go. They always went. Then she looked at the other display on her desk. The memorial list from the bright future. 50,000 names. She found Hana's sister, found the 3 children, found the crew members she had trained with years ago. She pulled her hand back. "I'm sorry," she said to the empty room, to the message, to the people she could save but wouldn't. "I'm so sorry. But you should have saved ours first." She deleted the message without responding. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson. Kindness is not weakness, patience. So-Jin had predicted this moment 5 years ago. She had written a paper about it during her graduate studies in xenoanthropology. The title was simple: The Inevitable Breaking Point: Why Humanity Will Eventually Stop Serving the Council. Her professors had called it too pessimistic. The Council's Academic Review Board had rejected it for publication. They said it promoted dangerous ideas about interspecies relations. They said humanity was happy with their role in galactic society. Now, 3 months into what the galaxy was calling the silence, So-Jin's paper was being shared across every academic network in Council space. Universities that had rejected her work were now asking her to speak. The same professors who had criticized her were sending apologies. She ignored them all. Instead, she stood in front of her classroom on Earth, teaching the next generation of human diplomats and strategists. Today's lesson was about power dynamics. Power is not about strength, she told her students. It's about necessity. For 50 years, we made ourselves necessary. We became the galaxy's emergency services, their infrastructure support, their rescue teams. We thought that would earn us respect. One of her students raised a hand. Did it earn us respect? Sojin smiled without humor. It earned us exploitation. They respected our usefulness, not our humanity. There's a difference. She pulled up a star map showing the current state of the galaxy. Red zones marked areas of crisis. There were hundreds of them, spreading like a disease across council space. This is what happens when a civilization builds itself on someone else's labor without acknowledging the cost. They forgot we were choosing to help. They thought it was our nature, our obligation. They were wrong. While Sojin taught, Admiral Jaewon stood in the command center of the Earth Defense Station, reviewing reports that most of the galaxy would never see. Humanity had not been idle during their 50 years of service. While human rescue teams saved alien lives, human military engineers had been building something else. Ships, warships, not the transport vessels and rescue craft that the Council knew about. Real military hardware designed for one purpose, to fight and win. The Resolute hung in orbit nearby, humanity's first true battleship. It was 5 times larger than any human vessel the Council had ever seen. Its weapon systems used technology that humans had quietly developed, while fixing everyone else's problems. Its armor could withstand hits that would vaporize Council ships. It was not alone. 149 more ships like it were stationed throughout human space, hidden in asteroid fields and behind moons, waiting. Captain Hyun-woo commanded the Resolute. He walked through the ship's corridors with quiet pride, watching his crew prepare for what was coming. They were ready. They had been ready for years. "How long until the delegation arrives?" he asked his first officer. 2 hours, sir, the delegation. 47 species the first time. Now it was all of them. Every single Council species, from the founding 12 to the newest members. They were coming to Earth together, united by desperation. 3 months of crisis had broken them. Without human help, their civilization was collapsing in slow motion. Space stations continued to fail. Trade routes remained closed. The Vrelian Dominion now controlled 30% more territory and showed no signs of stopping. They needed humans. They finally understood how much they needed humans. Jaewon watched their fleet approach on the long-range sensors. 200 ships, all displaying peaceful intentions, all carrying representatives who had once looked down on humanity as useful but inferior. This time he let them land. But only their delegation leaders. Only in a secure facility outside New Seoul, and only under heavy guard. The meeting room was simple. A large table, chairs, no decorations, no comfort. Jaewon wanted them to understand that this was not a negotiation between friends. Counselor Thren was the first to speak. The tall insect looked smaller somehow, diminished by circumstances. "Admiral Jaewon, thank you for agreeing to meet with us." "I didn't agree to anything." "You asked." "I allowed it." "There's a difference." Jaewon remained standing while the delegation sat, another small gesture of dominance. "Say what you came to say." Thren's mandibles clicked nervously. "The Council recognizes that humanity's departure has created severe challenges for galactic civilization. We have come to discuss terms for renewed cooperation." "Terms," Jaewon repeated. "Let me guess. You'll increase our trade benefits? Give us better mining rights? Maybe a few seats on some minor committees?" The delegation exchanged glances. That was exactly what they had been planning to offer. "We are prepared to grant humanity full voting rights on the Council," Thren said, "and protection for our colonies." A pause. "The Council would establish protocols for mutual defense." "Well, that's not what I asked." "If a human colony is attacked, will the Council fleet respond immediately? Yes or no?" Another pause, longer this time. "The Council would need to assess each situation." "No." Jaewon's voice was flat. "That's what I thought. You want us to return to our old role. Fix your problems. Save your people. But when our people need saving, you'll still debate jurisdiction. Admiral, please understand our position. I understand perfectly. You want what we can give you, but you don't want to give us what we need in return." You want servants who are slightly better treated than before. We're done being servants. Jaewon pulled up a holographic display. It showed the current state of council space in brutal detail. Failing stations. Closed trade routes. Territories lost to the Vrelians. Casualty counts that grew daily. This is your civilization without us, he said quietly. Look at it. Really look at it. This is what you built. A house of cards that only stood because we held it up, and you never even said thank you. We are grateful for humanity's past service. Grateful? Jaewon laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're not grateful. You're desperate. There's a difference. If you were grateful, you would have saved the bright future. If you were grateful, you would have given us voting rights the first time we asked. If you were grateful, 50,000 of our people would still be alive. The silence that followed was broken only by the hum of the ventilation system. Tresh, the Pelion spokesperson, spoke up from his water sphere. What do you want, Admiral? Name your price. We will pay it, my price. Jaewon turned to face the delegation directly. I want you to stop pretending this is a negotiation. You're not here to offer us a deal. You're here to beg. So beg properly. Ask us to save you. Admit that without us your civilization dies. Then maybe we'll talk about terms. The delegation members looked at each other in shock. None of them spoke. I didn't think so, Jaewon said. You still have your pride. You still think you're better than us. That's fine. Come back when you're ready to be honest. The galaxy is dying while we argue. Thren's voice rose in desperation. Species are suffering. 50,000 of our species suffered while you debated jurisdiction. You didn't care then? Why should we care now? Jaewon moved toward the door, then stopped. Actually, I'm going to make this simple for you. Earth's terms are not negotiable. Full council voting rights with no restrictions. Constitutional protection for all human colonies enforced by council military. Reparations for the families of the bright future. And one more thing. He turned back to face them. You're going to publicly admit that you were wrong. Not just about the voting rights. About everything. You're going to stand in front of the entire galaxy and say that you treated us as servants instead of equals. That you exploited our willingness to help. That you let our people die through negligence and cowardice. You're going to own what you did. That is not acceptable, Councillor Mendra said, her jellyfish body pulsing with agitation. Such a statement would undermine the Council's authority. Your authority is already undermined. Your civilization is collapsing. Your military can't stop the Vrelians. Your infrastructure is failing. You have no authority left except what we choose to give you. Jaewon's voice was cold and clear. Those are our terms. Take them or leave them. And if we refuse? Thren asked. Jaewon smiled for the first time since the meeting began. It was not a kind smile. Then we solve the galaxy's problems our own way. Without you. And trust me, you really don't want to see what that looks like. The delegation left an hour later with no agreement. Jaewon watched their ships depart and then turned to Hyunwoo, who had been observing from the security room. They'll refuse, Hyunwoo said. I know. That's why I made the terms harsh. I wanted them to refuse. Sir? Jaewon pulled up the tactical display. The Vrelian Dominion was marked in red, spreading across dozens of systems. The Council is weak because they're afraid to use force. They debate while aggressors take what they want. But we're not the Council. We're humans. We understand violence. We understand war, and we're very, very good at it. He looked at Hyunwoo. Prepare the fleet. We're going to stabilize the galaxy our way, starting with the Vrelians. All ships, sir? Every single one. Time to show the galaxy what happens when Deathworlders stop being nice and start being what we actually are. Hyunwoo grinned. About time. Within 6 hours, 150 human warships emerged from hiding. They assembled in formation above Earth, a sight that stunned every species monitoring the system. The Council had thought humans. Sergeant Yoonji had been a Marine for 12 years. She had trained in environments that would kill most species in seconds. Underwater combat in pressures that crushed standard equipment. Desert warfare in heat that melted metal. Arctic operations in cold that froze atmosphere solid. She had learned to fight in zero gravity, high gravity, toxic atmospheres, and hard vacuum. Now she stood in the briefing room of the Marine assault ship determined, listening to Captain Hyunwoo explain the mission. Around her, 200 Marines prepared their equipment with practiced efficiency. The target is the Vrelian dreadnought Conqueror, Hyunwoo said, pulling up tactical data. It's currently orbiting the colony world New Salem, preparing for planetary bombardment. Intelligence estimates 1,500 crew aboard. It's the flagship of their border fleet. One of the younger Marines raised a hand. Boarding action, sir? Boarding action, Yunwu confirmed. But not a normal one. The Conqueror will be passing through a solar radiation storm in 6 hours. The Vrelians will have their shields at maximum. All personnel in protected areas. They think the storm makes them safe. Yunji smiled. She knew where this was going. We're going in during the peak of the storm, Yunwu continued. Hard vacuum insertion. No shields. The radiation will fry any normal boarding pods, but ours are rated for this level of exposure. We'll have 40 minutes before the radiation dose becomes critical even for us. 40 minutes to take a dreadnought, Yunji said. Tight timeline. That's why you're leading the assault, Sergeant. Your team has the best record for rapid insertions. After the briefing, Yunji gathered her squad. 15 Marines, all veterans. They checked their armor seals, weapon systems, and radiation counters. The armor was heavy, designed to let them operate in environments where other species would die instantly. It was humanity's advantage, built from 50 years of being the ones willing to go where others wouldn't. Remember, Yunji told her squad, Vrelians evolved on a garden world. Light gravity, stable atmosphere, gentle seasons. They've never known real environmental stress. We're from Earth. Everything about us is built to survive conditions that kill. She pulled up a display showing Earth's statistics. Gravity that crushed, temperature swings that went from boiling to freezing, atmosphere pressure that could be deadly, natural disasters that wiped out entire regions, predators that hunted in packs, diseases that evolved as fast as cures could be found. We're the descendants of people who conquered that planet, she said quietly. Never forget what that means. The insertion pods launched precisely on schedule. Yunji watched through her helmet display as the Conqueror grew larger. Around her pod, space itself seemed to burn with radiation. The shields on any normal vessel would have failed within seconds. The crew inside would have been dead within minutes. Yunji's radiation counter climbed steadily, still within acceptable limits, barely. The pods hit the dreadnought's hull and burned through. Yunji was the first one through, her squad following in perfect formation. They emerged into a corridor full of surprised Vrelian crew members who had thought they were safe behind their shields. They were not safe. The engagement lasted 33 minutes. Vrelian security forces fought hard, but they were fighting in an environment they had never trained for. The radiation levels would have been deadly to them even with protection. They moved slowly, carefully, afraid of their own ship's conditions. Yunji's Marines moved like they were born in the radiation, because in a way they were. Earth's background radiation was higher than most planets. Humans had evolved with it, adapted to it, built resistance to it. When the last Vrelian security team surrendered, Yunji stood on the bridge of the Conqueror and opened a channel to the Vrelian commander. The alien looked at her through the view screen with something like horror. How? He asked simply. We're from a death world, Yunji said. This is a Tuesday for us. While Marines took control of Vrelian ships, pilots like Dong Hyun were proving that human advantages went beyond environmental tolerance. He flew a fighter called a Raptor, humanity's answer to the need for speed and maneuverability in impossible conditions. His current mission was simple on paper but suicidal in execution. A Vrelian supply fleet was moving through the Kepler system, using a route that passed near a collapsing binary star system. The gravity wells were unstable. The radiation was intense. Space itself seemed to twist and bend in ways that made navigation almost impossible. It was the perfect place for an ambush. Dong Hyun led a squadron of 12 fighters into the system. Standard Doctrine said you needed at least 50 fighters to take on a protected supply fleet. Standard Doctrine also said you never flew near a collapsing star system. Humans had stopped following Standard Doctrine 3 months ago. Remember, Dong Hyun told his squadron, the Vrelians will stay in the safe zones. They'll avoid the gravity wells and radiation pockets. That makes them predictable. And we're not predictable, one of his pilots asked. We're insane. There's a difference. They hit the Vrelian fleet from an approach vector that every tactical computer said was impossible. Dong Hyun flew his fighter through a gravity well that pulled at his ship with force enough to tear most vessels apart. His ship's frame groaned under the stress. His instruments went haywire. His body felt like it weighed 3 times normal. He had trained for this. Every human pilot trained for this. They called it death zone flying. Other species called it suicide. The Vrelian fighters scrambled to intercept but couldn't match the human approach vectors. They tried to follow and their ship started breaking apart from the gravitational stress. They tried to flee and found themselves cut off by human fighters appearing from impossible angles. The engagement lasted 8 minutes. 3 human fighters survived. Every single Vrelian ship was destroyed or disabled. Dong-Hyun's fighter had taken critical damage. His life support was failing. His engine was on fire. His radiation exposure was 10 times normal levels. He managed to limp back to the rally point where a human recovery ship picked him up. The medics told him he was lucky to be alive. He told them luck had nothing to do with it. He was from Earth. Surviving the impossible was what humans did. In Council space, species watched the human military campaign with growing horror. Not because it was brutal, though it was. Not because it was ruthless, though it was. But because it was so utterly, terrifyingly effective. Humans fought in places where battles should have been impossible. They operated in radiation zones,
Gravity wells.
toxic atmospheres, hard vacuum during solar storms, asteroid fields so dense that navigation computers gave up, nebulas where sensors couldn't see 3 meters ahead. They fought like the universe itself was their weapon. Miran proved this better than anyone. She was an intelligence officer, specializing in infiltration and sabotage. Her current assignment was to gather intel on the Vrelian High Command's strategic planning. She had been undercover on the Vrelian homeworld for 3 weeks, disguised as a member of a servant species. The Vrelians never looked closely at servants. It was their weakness. Tonight she stood in the command center of the Vrelian planetary defense system, having talked her way past security by pretending to be a cleaning crew member. She planted listening devices in 7 locations and downloaded their entire tactical database to a portable drive small enough to hide in her boot. Then, because she was human and humans had a sense of dramatic timing, she left a message in the Vrelian commander's personal terminal. You're about to lose. Not because we're stronger, not because we're smarter, but because you evolved in safety. You've never known what it means to fight for survival. We have. Every day of our evolution was a fight. Every generation of our history was war. You picked a fight with Deathworlders. That was your first and last mistake. She escaped the same way she had entered, blending into the servant population until she reached her extraction point. The Vrelian commander found the message 3 hours later. By then, Miran was already on a ship heading back to human space. By then, a human fleet was already entering the outer edges of the Vrelian home system. The Vrelian military outnumbered the humans 20-1. They had more ships, more weapons, more resources. On paper, they should have won easily. But war is not fought on paper. The human fleet used the home system's asteroid belt as cover, navigating through debris fields that Vrelian ships couldn't safely enter. They launched fighters from inside the radiation shadow of the system's largest gas giant. They timed their attacks to coincide with solar flares that disrupted Vrelian sensors. They fought like the system itself was their ally. Because for humans it was, every dangerous condition was just another day on Earth. Every environmental hazard was just weather. The Vrelian defense fleet broke after 6 days of continuous combat. Not because they ran out of ships, though many were destroyed. Not because they ran out of ammunition, though supplies ran low. They broke because they were fighting an enemy they didn't understand. An enemy that came from a world so deadly that everything else seemed easy by comparison. An enemy that had spent 50 years being nice, and had finally decided to show what they really were. Captain Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the last Vrelian military formation retreat to the inner planets. Around him, the council chamber looked different now. The same 200 species sat in the same seats, but the atmosphere had changed. Where once there had been casual dismissal of human concerns, now there was careful attention to every word spoken by Earth's representatives. Junho stood at the human podium, but he did not stand alone. Behind him, visible through the massive viewports, hung the human fleet. 50 warships, a permanent reminder of what had happened when the galaxy forgot who they were dealing with. He wore his diplomatic robes, but underneath them, his military decorations were visible. Unlike ambassadors before him, Junho had not come from the diplomatic corps. He was a former Marine, a veteran of the Vrelian campaign. He had earned his position through combat, not negotiation. The Council had learned to respect that. The Vrelian Dominion has surrendered unconditionally, Junho began without preamble. Their military is destroyed. Their territorial claims are void. The species they enslaved are free. This concludes Earth's military operations in Council space. Councillor Thren, who had aged visibly in the past year, spoke carefully. Earth has performed a great service to the galaxy. The Council is grateful. Stop, Junho said simply. We didn't do it for gratitude. We did it because the job needed doing and you couldn't do it. Let's be honest about that. The silence was uncomfortable, but no one argued. The numbers spoke for themselves. Human casualties in the war, 12,000. Vrelian casualties, 8 million, mostly military. The efficiency was brutal. The message was clear. Humans were very, very good at war. The Council has prepared new terms for Earth's participation in galactic governance, Thren continued. Full voting rights without restriction. Constitutional protection for all human colonies. Reparations for the families of the bright future. And a formal apology for the Council's failure to act. Junho had reviewed these terms already. They were everything Earth had asked for. Everything humanity had been denied for 50 years. The Council was finally ready to give humans what they deserved. But something had changed. The humans had changed. We accept these terms, Junho said. But understand what this means. We're not returning to how things were. We're not going back to being your emergency services, your infrastructure support, your convenient problem solvers. That version of humanity is gone. He pulled up a holographic display showing new human policies. From now on, Earth operates as an equal partner. Want human rescue teams? You pay market rates and sign protection agreements. Want human engineers? Technology sharing treaties, no exceptions. Want human military support? Mutual defense pacts with real commitments. We help those who help us. We protect those who protect us. Everyone else is on their own. Sun He, Earth's chief policy architect, stood to present the detailed framework. She was younger than most council representatives, but had proven herself brilliant during the restructuring of human foreign policy. The old system was built on exploitation, she said bluntly. Humanity provided services far beyond their value, and received nothing in return except dismissal and contempt. That ends today. Every human service now has clear terms, clear costs, and clear consequences for failure to meet obligations. She displayed the new rate structure. Rescue operations that had once been free now cost significant resources. Engineering support required technology exchanges. Military assistance required formal alliance treaties. The prices were fair but firm. Some council members looked shocked. Others looked angry, but none of them argued. They had seen what happened when humans stopped being nice. Nobody wanted to see it again. This is extortion, one representative finally said. It was Mendra, the Pelian counselor, her voice tight with frustration. Junho looked at her steadily. No, extortion would be demanding payment for protection from threats we create. This is simple economics. You want a service, you pay for it. You want an alliance, you honor your commitments. That's not extortion. That's respect. He leaned forward slightly. For 50 years, you got our help for free. You got our expertise, our courage, our willingness to die for strangers. You took it all and gave nothing back. Now you pay fair value. If you don't like it, there are other options. You can develop your own rescue services. Train your own engineers. Build your own military. We won't stop you. The unspoken message was clear. Try it. See if you can do what humans do. See if you can survive the conditions that humans consider normal. Nobody took that challenge. Over the following months, the new order established itself. Some species signed the new treaties immediately, recognizing that partnership with humanity was worth the cost. Others resisted, tried to go their own way, and quickly learned why humans had been so valuable. Mining colony disaster on a Grendra world killed 3,000 people because they refused to pay for human rescue rates in their own teams, couldn't handle the conditions. After that, the Grendra signed every treaty Earth offered. A Pelian space station collapsed because they tried to maintain it themselves rather than agree to technology sharing. 200,000 Pelians died. The survivors signed the engineering treaty the next day. Earth did not gloat. Earth did not say, "We told you so." Earth simply maintained its policies and let results speak for themselves. But Earth also remembered its friends. The few species that had supported human equality from the beginning, that had spoken up for the bright future, that had condemned the Council's inaction, those species got special treatment. Preferred rates, priority response, technology gifts instead of trades. Humanity had learned to distinguish between allies and opportunists. That lesson would not be forgotten. 10 years passed. The galaxy adjusted to the new reality. Children grew up learning about the silence in history classes. Politicians used "Remember the Bright Future" as a reminder to honor commitments. Military academies studied human tactics, though few species could actually replicate them. Min Seok taught at one of those academies now. He was young for a professor, but his service record from the Vrelian campaign had earned him respect. Today he stood in front of a classroom full of multi-species students, teaching basic human military history. One student, a young Pelian named Kresh, raised his hand. "Professor, the stories say humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Is that true?" Min Seok considered the question carefully. Define dangerous: capable of causing harm, capable of destruction. By that definition, yes. Humans are very dangerous. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us constantly. We learned to be tough, to be adaptable, to survive conditions that would kill most species. We learned to fight and kill because we had no choice. He pulled up images of Earth, beautiful oceans, lush forests, mountains and plains and cities. It looked peaceful. Paradise. "This is a death world," Min Seok said quietly. "Gravity that crushes, weather that kills, predators that hunt, diseases that evolve faster than cures. Humans survived there for millions of years. We didn't just survive, we thrived. We became the dominant species on a planet designed to kill us." Another student, this one Grendra, spoke up. "So you're saying humans are naturally violent?" "I'm saying we're naturally survivors. Violence is just one tool in our survival kit. We're also naturally cooperative, naturally creative, naturally stubborn. We're complex, dangerous, yes, but also capable of incredible kindness." He changed the image to show human rescue teams during the pre-silence era. Humans pulling survivors from wreckage, humans maintaining failing stations, humans flying through radiation storms to deliver medicine. For 50 years, humans chose kindness. We chose to help. We chose to be nice. That choice didn't make us weak. It made us patient. When that patience ended, you saw what we really were, what we had always been, what we chose not to show you. Kresh asked the question that everyone wanted to know. Will humans ever go back to being nice? Min Seok smiled gently. We are nice. To our friends, to our allies, to species that respect us. We're very nice to people we care about. We're just not nice to everyone anymore. We learned the difference between kindness and weakness, between helping and being exploited, between generosity and obligation. He looked across the classroom at the eager young faces from a dozen different species. The real question isn't whether humans are dangerous. Everything from Earth is dangerous, our animals, our diseases, our weather, us. The question is, are you our friend or not? Because friendship with humans means something. It means we'll fight for you. It means we'll save you. It means we remember loyalty and we reward it. But it also means we expect the same in return. He pulled up one final image. The memorial for the bright future. 50,000 names carved into black stone on Earth. The monument that humanity built to remember what happened when friendship was betrayed. Choose wisely who you befriend. Choose wisely who you betray. We always do. After class, Min Seok walked through the academy grounds. The campus was on Earth, in a region that had once been called Korea. Human students mixed with alien students, learning together, training together. It was the future that Ambassador Hana had wanted. True cooperation, true partnership. She would have liked this. He found her memorial later that day, visiting it like he did every week. The statue showed her in her diplomatic robes, hand raised as if making a point in debate. At the base, her final words to the council were inscribed, "We are